Happy Saturday, East Tennessee. Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. As you're listening to News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and you know, spring planting and the summer harvest brings a bounty of fresh food, fruits, and vegetables to gardens and markets. And incorporating lots of fruits and vegetables in your diet is a great way to maintain a healthy weight. You know, Americans and East Tennesseans in particular have an obesity epidemic. You know, according to the CDC, only 1 in 10 Americans eat the recommended daily servings of fruits and vegetables. We have lots of choices when it comes to where to get our produce and whether we get organic or not. Most of our grandparents, our parents had a garden and brought fresh staples from the farmer down the road. These days, it's just more convenient or cheaper to consume prepackaged foods instead of finding new recipes and learning how to cook good fresh vegetables. Today, our guest is no stranger to the farmers market scene and fresh food initiatives right here in Knoxville. Charlotte Tolley is the executive director and founder of Nourish, Knoxville. It's a nonprofit organization helping to create a healthier community and supporting relationships between local farmers, producers, and the public. Charlotte was a Knox News Sentinel 40 Under 40 recipient and is a graduate of the Haslam College of Business. Welcome to the show today, Charlotte.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, it's great to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about Nourish Knoxville.
Sure. As you mentioned, we are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2013, but it really was started because of our work with the Market Square Farmers Market, which started in 2004. So, you know, our base is farmers markets, but we do a lot of work at markets to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as, you know, partner with other nonprofit organizations for educational activities. And now we do a lot of things around just education. So we produce a East Tennessee local food guide that covers now 33 counties in East Tennessee. And we've done some pandemic response work as well that we can talk about that's pretty new to us.
Sure, yeah, we definitely want to get into all that. So the farmers market, you know, the modern version that started in 2004 at the Market Square, is that what really fueled your passion to start Nourish Knoxville?
Yes. There were a lot of people involved at the beginning, starting the Market Square Farmers Market, which, you know, there's not much not to like about farmers markets. There were people just hoping to get people back downtown. There were people wanting to bring more customers to their stores and restaurants that they had opened. There were folks that wanted to increase access to food to the downtown community. And I helped start that market, partly because I really just loved Knoxville, and thought that Market Square should be returned to its glory of a place that is a curb market for farmers forever, which is what the land was donated to the city for. And it was slow going for a while, but we worked with farmers and artisans throughout the community and grew exponentially over the years. But there is still a lot of work to be done. You know, not everybody wanted to even shop at a farmer's market, and farmers really need more than just one good Saturday market to be farmers. You know, peaches don't just ripen on Friday. So our first things after that were starting a winter farmers market and then doing the local food guide, and so we can kind of float all the boats by promoting all the various ways people can access local farms.
Well, and the farmers markets really have become very, very popular in the last few years and really in the last decade. I believe the Market Square one is the most heavily trafficked, but how many different farmers markets are there every week throughout the area?
In Knox County alone, I believe our number this year is 8. So there are, you know, between 30 and 40 in East Tennessee. So there's no shortage, really. Not every neighborhood has their own, but there's you know, a Tuesday market in Ebenezer Road in Knoxville. There's one in Farragut on Saturday. Ours is on Saturday, normally at Market Square, but right now we're at the Knoxville Civic Auditorium and Coliseum during the pandemic. There's a we run the New Harvest Farmers Market on Thursdays. And then in Anderson County, just right over the border, there's Oak Ridge Farmers Market and Hardin Valley Farmers Market and now a New Clinton Farmers Market. So,
there's a lot of great options.
Places.
Now, the farmers market has a lot of vendors. Let's talk about of course, we think of produce, but to people's surprise, there are dozens of booths with a lot of different offerings. So walk us through some of the types of vendors you have at a farmer's market.
Yeah, of course, people think of those draw crops, peaches and corn and blueberries, like homegrown tomatoes, the kinds of things that really do taste a lot different if you get them fresh, and you can find more variety of. But, even farming, there's all sorts of things that people raise and grow. There's mushrooms, there's, all kinds of meat, chicken, goat, lamb, and then, honey and people who grow cut flowers or plants. There's all kinds of just, farmers doesn't mean that somebody that necessarily just grows produce. There's a large variety there. And then we have food producers, so people that do, dried fruits and vegetables that are made into processed foods or baked goods or food trucks. So there's some things to be consumed on site. And then not all markets include crafts. Ours do to some extent. We have a small selection of craft vendors as well, some of which, we have like a broom maker that uses local wood for her sticks, and then everything from pottery to crochet and jewelry. So it creates its own community of people. Our vendors support each other, and it creates this whole day event that you can find a lot of what you would need.
Yeah, and it's funny when I'm at a farmer's market, or I even talk about a farmer's market, it reminds me of my grandfather, because my grandfather, he was he was a horticulture guy, but he was head of, he did agriculture stuff for the University of Tennessee and helped kind of develop the Cumberland Plateau area. But he had a peach orchard in Lenoir City, right off the interstate. And we loved going there and picking fresh peaches. And then he also grew fresh strawberries at his place up in actually Ozone, Tennessee, which is right just his house was just right down the road from Ozone Falls, which of course is beautiful. And but anyway, for whatever reason, when I see farmers markets, I always think of him and those fresh peaches and strawberries. And of course, strawberries are hard to grow. They're not the easiest thing in the world. And he was good at all of that stuff. But it just brings back so many great memories. But now there are many. Let's talk a little bit about. There are so many produce delivery services that have really taken off, especially since the pandemic. Now, a national one is Misfit, and there are numerous Knoxville produce delivery services. Are there any advantages or disadvantages of these types of services versus shopping for produce in a grocery store?
Yeah, the pandemic definitely sort of hastened the growth of some of those kinds of, some that were already in the works. We work with a company called Farm Grub. They're a sponsor of our Kids Club programs, and they had reached out to us a couple years ago before the pandemic, and they're more of like an online grocery. So they work with local farms, but also non-local and some artisan food producers, and you can go on their website and they deliver to your house, and they're in Knox and Blount County. So, it turns out to be a really great way to get produce pretty quickly, because also, farmers markets have very limited hours, and there's very few real grocery stores that you can find a lot of local produce in. And companies like that are able to stock some like artisan food products. So they have some folks that make things in Nashville that you're not going to really see on shelves here. So it does give you a new, something new and exciting to look at. And if you're, pandemic or not, if it's just difficult for you to find the time to shop, or, have mobility issues or whatever might prevent you from shopping in person, it can be really helpful. And there's a few other models that have started. I think it really started with the pandemic. There are a couple of farms that started doing their own aggregation and some home delivery. or common pickup spots. We work with a farm, Two Chicks and a Farm in Jefferson County, that was already doing sort of a CSA where you could join their CSA and then you order every week what you want, and you meet them in various parking lots across Knox County and Jefferson County to pick up your order every week. And they're, as soon as the pandemic hit, people who had been, maybe ordering every once in a while were like, these are my farmers, they're going to bring me stuff, I trust them, let's do that. And so, it was just really interesting how some of that pandemic affected positively some of what farmers were already doing. It just, made people more aware and appreciative of that kind of thing.
Yeah, change can always ultimately be a positive thing, and there are so many options in this area, and that's what we really want to get into. We're visiting with Charlotte Tolley. She's with Nourish Knoxville. When we come back, we'll have more with Charlotte. We'll also talk about her program that Nourish Knoxville started, Market to Go, and we'll talk about some of the concerns or the challenges with getting the right kinds of fruits and vegetables. So please stay with us as we're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Welcome back to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm your host, Jim Brogan. We air every Saturday at 9 a.m. and again at 3 p.m. You can catch us in both hours if you miss part of the program. We're visiting this morning with Charlotte Tolley. There are so many great healthy options in the Knoxville area with farmers markets and the like for fresh produce and fresh options that benefit local East Tennessee people. And we're talking to Charlotte. She is the founder of Nourish Knoxville, a nonprofit in Knoxville that helps support the farmers market down at Market Square and the kind of the initiatives to help the farmers in East Tennessee. And Charlotte, I know that you started a program, or Nourish Knoxville, I believe, called Market to Go, that offers online shopping and delivery or pickup in Knoxville and Oak Ridge, which, of course, we were talking about some of those options there in the last segment. Tell our listeners more about this option.
Yeah, that was actually started by Grow Oak Ridge. We both run a winter farmers market, and we work fairly closely with their organization, and we opted for our winter market, which is normally indoors, to be outdoors at the Maricosta Plaza where our summer market is, because of COVID-19, and shorten our hours. And then they were staying indoors at their location, but really wanted to figure out better ways to do on-site pickup. We'd both sort of seen the issues with trying to pre-order separately from farmers that come to our market throughout the summer and then aggregate those. It was difficult for the farmer and the customer. So Rebecca Williams, who's the market manager at Grow Oak Ridge, researched all the software and went with one called Local Food Marketplace and invited us to be a part of it. So they and we ran Market to Go for both of our winter farmers markets. Our last one of those is next week, April 17th, will be the last winter market day. And we work with farmers so they control their own stores. I mean, it's sort of like an Etsy or something like that, where each vendor puts the products they want to sell on the platform, and then there's an order window, so Monday through Thursday of that week, customers can go on and shop for what they want, and then pick it up at whichever location they're shopping at. So it was a really easy way to add a little bit more to our markets throughout the pandemic. We actually are not continuing that program in the summer markets once we have 3 markets a week that we're running. Grow Oak Ridge is continuing it so that they are doing a pickup every Saturday at Dean's Restaurant on Jackson Square, which is where the main farmers market in Oak Ridge is as well. So it's been a really interesting program and a process. It's been really great for the customers that love it. And, some farmers are into it, some are not. Some love that they can just put some stuff online, know that it's sold, pre-bag it and get it there. Some would rather just bring everything, put it out on a table, especially in the winter. there's not a lot of fresh produce. I mean, it's winter, and so most of those farmers are selling out. But the meat vendors, eggs, honey, they're going to have product, and it really helps them to just put some of that online as well, and people can pick those up.
Sure. The USDA, Charlotte, recommends, depending on somebody's age, up to 12, even 13 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables daily. And I know most of us are so concerned about how our produce is produced. Can you talk a little bit about the difference in shipping produce? Like if the difference in something that's freshly picked here in this area versus something that's shipped from several states away or even from overseas?
Yeah, a lot of our produce is from Mexico or California. Those are really common places where it's warmer or they have, different climates. A lot of our fruit comes from Florida as well. So, there's advantages and disadvantages. I mean, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of produce that grows locally in the winter. There is some, and you have to seek it out. But, it may work better for some people especially in the winter. If you want strawberries, you're not going to find them locally. They're not going to be as good, in my opinion, but I'm going to eat all of the strawberries when they're in season until I get tired of them, and then.
Yeah, I do have to tell you, Charlotte, when I travel, of course, I haven't done much of that in the last year, but when I'm in California, the strawberries out there are amazing. When when you're actually in California and eating them local, they're unbelievable.
Yes, I mean that's one of the things I do when I travel as well. I mean, we were in Oregon, I guess it's 2 years ago now, and they have all of the tree fruits. So we're eating, different kinds of plums, and it's just very exciting. And here, we have a native grape, the muscadine. Like, you don't find that other places, and not everyone's into them. I am, but we have our own local fruits, and pawpaws have a resurgence of excitement. So I think that it's very exciting to eat in season. And often you can find, sometimes if there's a glut of something, it might be a little bit cheaper, and you can buy some things in bulk and put them in the freezer. But, the advantage of having easily shipped fruits and vegetables is that there is something available all year if you're trying to add more fruits and vegetables into your diet. You may also freeze things in season and consume them over the winter time. But when you come to a farmer's market, it's all really fresh. And there's a lot of varieties that don't ship well, especially heirloom tomatoes or even peaches that are often picked not quite ripe so that they can ripen later. And because they're very delicate and would be hard to ship otherwise.
Sure.
So
now tropical fruits, bananas, pineapple, mango, they're kind of hard to grow in the continental United States. Yeah. So we depend a lot on international shipping. But is there a downside to that? I mean, when we get our product, when we get that overseas?
Yeah, I mean, if you are committed to eating bananas, then you're going to have to get them from somewhere else. And there's not really a replacement for a banana. But there's a lot of
banana, though.
Yeah, I mean, people love a banana, and for myself as well, like perhaps I'm eating a banana or using it in a smoothie, but it'll also have my local strawberries that I've frozen away. So you can, combine the two. But, when you're looking at really large scale economies, I mean, there have been a lot of research and stories coming out lately about, the issues with farm workers and how, you have to think about how it's grown, and it's often gassed or, using other kinds of chemicals to make it ripen when you want it to. And, you mentioned misfits earlier, and one reason that happens is if you're buying produce at a grocery store or somewhere like a more larger institution, they're graded. And so, they're looking for zucchini that are a certain size and weight, and that's what they need to be, but that's not necessarily what all the zucchinis are going to be. So misfits is one that takes those extras, the things that grow that don't quite fit into the case sizes that they're supposed to, that are completely good. They're just a little bigger or a little smaller, and get those to people as well. So
that's a good idea.
And yeah.
Now, in the organic area, so not everyone can afford to buy and eat everything organic. So if you have to be selective, what type of produce is best to eat organic, and when can you what types of produce, is it okay, you go ahead and shop in the normal section of the produce department?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about organic, and there's people who choose organic over local, or they choose, organic is an actual government certification as well. I mean, to use USDA certified organic is very specific, and it can be expensive for the farmer as well to be certified organic. So a lot of growers that sell to farmers market or direct aren't going to be certified organic, because they talk to their customers and they can talk about what they do, and maybe they do use some pesticides occasionally if they really need to save a crop, but they don't normally. So that's one advantage of shopping direct from a farmer, is just kind of getting to know them and asking questions and what you're comfortable with. And a lot of them use organic methods, a lot of them don't. It's really all over the board. But when you're shopping at something like, your local food co-op or a Kroger, that certification does help you know the difference in those growing methods. And there's a few publications online about the dirty dozen of the fruits and vegetables that maybe take a lot of pesticides to produce, or retain that. Strawberries are one that come up a lot. So I would encourage people to look up some of the ones that are more destructive if they're not more organic. But it's really important to eat fruits and vegetables regardless. And so if the choice is between no produce or organic, or, if you have the choice to get conventionally grown, otherwise you're not going to eat any produce, still eat the produce. It's still going to be good for you.
Well, that's a good point. We tend to be perfectionists sometimes, and if I can't get the absolute perfect thing. But I've always heard, obviously the more, fruits where you're not going to be eating the skin, or maybe not as, it's not as important as where you're going to be eating the skin, that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, we're visiting with Charlotte Tolley. She's with Nourish Knoxville, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more about all the different great options here in East Tennessee. We're also going to have our dollars and cents segment. When are we likely to see economic growth? And how might this new infrastructure plan from Joe Biden that's been proposed, how might that affect our economy? So stay with us. You're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. You're listening to News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We're visiting with Charlotte Tolley and talking about all the great local fresh food options, produce. We're going to get a little bit more into meats and how our local restaurant scene has really impacted the ability of local farmers to bring stuff to us. Before we get back to Charlotte, it is time for dollars and cents. When are we likely to see economic growth? Where is our economy headed? How fast will it grow post-COVID? And how will President Biden's infrastructure plan affect it? There's definitely pent-up demand in the economy, both here and abroad. Savings rates are the highest they've been since shortly after World War II. So in other words, people are hungry and ready to get out and consume, I think, and do things and produce economic activity. So keep in mind, it's not just how much money is in print and in circulation, because the Federal Reserve has been, printing a lot of money every month, but it's also what's going on with that money. How fast is it circulating through the economy and resulting in gross domestic product? And the speed at which the money cycles through the economy is called the velocity of money. So one of the reasons we haven't seen tremendous growth and rebound is because the velocity of the money has not quite come back. But we have all this pent-up demand, savings, people are ready. So I think things are poised for some good things. Now, Moody's chief economist said that President Biden's infrastructure plan, so that's been proposed, could actually marginally slow the economy during the short term. And one of the big reasons for that is corporate tax hikes could offset the plan's price tag at first, but the benefit of new infrastructure spending might not happen until later. So you may get an immediate, especially on the corporate income tax, if that does go up from 21 to 28%. Well, you and I both know that that gets filtered down to you and me, the consumer, when we have higher corporate income taxes. It just gets filtered right down. And we ended up paying it. So, you know, the infrastructure spending I do think is extremely important. I think infrastructure is a great way to really get kind of reset a new economy and get back to full, or at least closer to full employment. But, you know, at a cost of over $2 trillion, we could end up seeing increased income taxes. How do you pay for it? It's just a tough balancing act. And we're already at such enormous levels of debt. So bottom line is we live in uncertain times. And I think retirees and soon-to-be retirees need to be prepared. And, you know, interest rates are very, very low. So the bond market is not very attractive on the long term. Because the interest rates are so low. And remember, if interest rates go up, bonds values go down. So either bonds aren't paying much or interest rates go up and they do even worse. And yet we're starting to see signs of a little bit of inflation. Taxes are likely to rise, especially in the longer term, and markets are unpredictable. And one of the keys to being successful in the long term is to be in the market surges, to be invested when we have market surges. But that means you're probably going to be invested when we have market declines and corrections. So the key is to put together a comprehensive plan that factors all that in. We're going to have good markets. We're going to have bad markets. You need stability of income in the short term in retirement, but you need growth of income in the long term. So having a comprehensive plan should address all of these challenges. Please do check us out, More Living, at broganfinancial.com. If you click on radio, you'll find our More Living podcasts, both our radio show and our Dollars and Cents segment. Also our Retirement Minutes that air every week on this station. Also, my upcoming University of Tennessee has their adult education class, Financial Survival for Retirement. It's 2 2-hour sessions. It's on May the 4th and the 11th. I teach the class. I'd love to see you there, either in person or virtually. We're doing it both ways coming up. You can find out more about the syllabus. I cover 7 key areas I think all retirees and soon-to-be retirees need to be addressing in their financial plan, in their retirement plan. So you can go to financialsurvivalforretirement.com and you can download the syllabus. Also click on a link to register. If you want more information about all of our classes, you can go to broganfinancial.com, click on classes. I'd also urge you to subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, where I basically just put out information, links to the content that I regularly produce, which is really just, I try to give you great information in plain English so you can make informed and prudent decisions that can impact the quality of your life. So do check us out at broganfinancial.com. You can follow us at Facebook and at Twitter. Today we're visiting with Charlotte Tolley. She's with Nourish, Knoxville. And, you know, our health, probably the most important thing we need to take care of. It doesn't really, you know, if you spend your health trying to gain wealth, then later in life you're going to spend your wealth trying to keep your health. And there's so many great options locally. That's good for the local community and the local economy. One thing I wanted to ask you, Charlotte, is, you know, not all of us have a green thumb or time for a big garden, but there are some simple things you can do in either a small garden or a container garden. What are some things we can do that are pretty easy to grow ourselves?
Yeah, I am one of those people. I mean, I think probably one of the reasons I started a farmer's market is sort of a those who can't do teach. I love, my parents had a garden and we grew things growing up, but didn't have my own land, and I just wanted people to grow and make me things and bring it to me. But there's things that I continue to do, and herbs are a really great one just because there's tend to be small, and it can really add a lot to anything that you're making. I have just a few little containers on a windowsill of, oregano, basil in the summer, and a few of those kinds of things around all the time. There's not, especially in the South, I mean, everybody wants a homegrown tomato. They do take up a decent amount of space, but there are varieties that grow well in a container. You don't need to have a whole bunch of plants, and especially little cherry tomato varieties. There's some that grow in hanging containers that, you can basically just walk out on your deck and have a little snack whenever you feel like it. So Those are what I recommend the most. But I think having an herb garden around, or even if it's not all the time and you just put a little plants on your windowsill, it can really add a lot of value.
Yeah, we've had times where we've had an herb garden that my wife did, and it was always so cool and great herbs. Now, the farm-to-table movement has been very popular in the past few years, and many local companies, we've got Cruz Farms, Benton's Bacon, which, of course, Benton's really famous throughout all the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But they're right here in our backyard, and there are many others, and they're on restaurant menus throughout Knoxville. So how have the partnerships between farmers and restaurants changed the perspectives of our community when it comes to accessibility of fresh ingredients?
Yeah, I mean, and the ones that you're talking about are things you can get year-round, so that really helps. When you're talking about dairy, they're getting milked all the time, and so there's a few things that I would credit to. The presence of Blackberry Farm has really helped to elevate, like, Appalachian cuisine, if you want to call it that, or just Southern food. And
you mentioned Blackberry Farm. A lot of the chefs that have been there have then started local, with some of our best restaurants in this area were started and owned by, former Blackberry Farm chefs.
Yeah, and it's created
a
really
great. I mean, it's really almost a worldwide culinary, well-known for culinary all over the world, and it's right here in our community. Right. And then that's, as you mentioned, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's had a huge impact.
I think that, Benton's actually credits Blackberry for, and it's interesting, people often don't really, they take for granted the kinds of things that are in their backyard. And so once Benton's was shipping to restaurants in New York and California, but Blackberry put it on the menu. And the same with Cruz Farm, they used Cruz Farm milk and, helped build their brand. And so having someone like that can help elevate those kinds of things has helped. And then bringing in chefs, people that our former board member, Matt Gallagher, owns Knox Mason and Amelia in downtown Knoxville. And, he worked at Blackberry for a long time and then started his restaurants in Knoxville. And, there's J.C. Holdway and Adopo and these other restaurants for Blackberry alums, and some of them work together. So it's really created this sense of community between chefs as well, when they worked together before, and then can, help each other with their new restaurants. And they have farmers that they worked with at Blackberry or another place that they worked. And so as there are a few more restaurants opening, then, farmers can step up for that demand, and it just builds a bigger community.
Yeah, you mentioned J.C. Holdway, Joseph Lynn. I mean, that guy, he's pretty well known across the entire country. I mean, it's amazing what we have right here in our backyard. You mentioned several of those options. Tell you what, I can't visit with you and talk about local farm-to-tables type stuff without talking about our meat choices and things we can do with meat share programs and different things like that. Also, options for people who are in more poverty, and with the SNAP programs, what they can do to take advantage of local options. So stay with us as we visit with Charlotte Tolley. She's with Nourish Knoxville. You're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. This is More Living on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We're visiting with Charlotte Tolley, Nourish Knoxville. And Charlotte, I've had friends buy part of a cow or a hog with another family. When it comes to produce, or many people that think about produce, that it may be a concept, a foreign concept for many, on the idea of sharing ownership of a cow. So what is a CSA? How does that work?
Community supported agriculture. So the traditional model is that a customer pays a farmer at the beginning of the season. So it's like literal seed money, and then reaps, or I guess doesn't, whatever happens on the farm after that. Most of the way that it works practically is that, a customer who's prepaid will get, it's usually like a $20 to $25 value box of vegetables for whatever season that has been agreed upon, 10 weeks, 26 weeks, something like that, picked up wherever they've decided. But those models have really grown. So there's things where, like the one I was mentioning earlier, which you just pay like $25 a year to be a part of it, and then you order what you want. There are people who do a meat CSA or a mushroom CSA or like an herbal remedy CSA. So it's partly a way to sort of support someone that you feel like you want to support, and then get those things at a regular increment throughout the season. The meat part, some people do it in like a CSA way, but then there's also just like what you were mentioning, which is, hey, let's buy half of a hog. And not to get too in the weeds, but there's USDA processing versus non-USDA processing. And so a lot of times when you're buying half of a hog, you're buying live weight. So you're buying half of a live hog that the farmer then takes to a slaughterhouse. And then you pick it up usually from that slaughterhouse for whatever it is that you have gone in on, and hopefully you have a big freezer.
But yeah, I guess a lot of people were not aware you could do really that approach with produce, right? With what you were talking about, which is kind of cool. Now let's talk about accessibility for those on reduced income or those that receive SNAP benefits. How is Nourish Knoxville working to help those folks?
Well, we accept SNAP at farmers markets. So we run New Harvest Farmers Market, Market Square. It'll be on Market Square on Wednesdays, at Mary Costa on Saturdays, and then we work with the East Side Sunday Market in East Knoxville. So all of those markets accept SNAP. We work with a couple partner markets as well, so Oak Ridge and Irwin and some others you can see on our website. And so all of those folks accept SNAP benefits. One thing that's a little challenging at farmers markets is it's not like a grocery store where you can pick out everything you want, go through one checkout, and swipe your card. You have to buy separately from each of these tiny stores that represents a vendor. And so you would bring your SNAP card to our information booth and get tokens to spend with any SNAP eligible food, so meat, eggs, honey, all of it. But then we also offer a program called Double Up Food Bucks. And so you receive up to $20 per day in tokens to spend on free fresh fruits and vegetables at those markets as well.
Now, last year you launched the Nourish community. So can you tell us what are the objectives of that program?
It really started partly from the farmer side. When we opened our main market in May, we were still under shelter at home. And, farmers were just in the planting stages in March as things were shutting down. And restaurants were shutting down or just being slower. Grocery stores were picking up, and folks that had those kinds of options like an online ordering and CSAs, those were going through the roof. But we were seeing just sort of, basically supply chain switching really quickly. And so we were really worried about food going to waste, and at the same time, knowing that there was a lot of demand. And one of the things that happened is one of our partners reached out, Interfaith Health Clinic, which is for low-income individuals, that said, this is really great. We're working with Second Harvest, but they've gone to emergency food boxes. So a lot of what we're getting are packaged shelf-stable foods like pasta and that kind of thing. But a lot of our clients are pre-diabetic or diabetic or have these also comorbidities for COVID-19, and we really want to get them more fresh produce. Can you help us? And we're like, yes. we know people that have produce. We can get it to you. So we applied for 1 million grants. And so we had a really high support from our community to help buy some of that produce, keep the farmers planting, and told them, we have this money. We will buy it if no one else will. We will get it to the people that need it. And so we started that in March of last year, and we've continued it. So we're still doing that, where we help purchase produce. We aren't the ones that distribute it generally. We work with partners. We work with Centro Hispano, Bridge Refugee Services, Interfaith Health Clinic, and some senior living towers.
That's some great stuff you all have. Yeah, that's some great stuff you've got going on. Hey, we're out of time quickly. How can people learn more about Nourish Knoxville and find all their different local farmers market locations?
Easiest thing is nourishnknoxville.org.
Nourishnknoxville.org. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for being with us this morning and taking time out of your schedule.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's Charlotte Tolley, Nourish Knoxville, again, nourishnknoxville.org. Today we've discussed your health, greater health, and supporting the local economy and local farmers, because a greater community provides for more living, so you can live the best years of your life your way. Check us out online, broganfinancial.com. If you're interested in my upcoming class at the University of Tennessee, May 4th and the 11th, go to financialsurvivalforretirement.com. That's the name of the class at UT. Again, two-hour sessions in the evening through their non-credit adult education. Thank you, Jill, producing the show. Thank you, Chris, engineering the board. You've been listening to More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Have a very blessed weekend.